What is up, Tsubasa fans? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. Today I'm here with a very special guest. Now, she is an actress who is best known to fans as the Mokinas in xxxHolic and Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, but she is also known on shows such as Kenichi the Mightiest Disciple, Ikki Tousen, Shuffle, ROD the TV, Crayon Shinchan, Trinity Blood, Haibane Renmei, SoltyRei, One Piece, Paranoia Agent, Negima, and so much more. Please welcome the wonderful Carrie Savage.
Hello. Sorry. It's crazy hearing all those shows.
That's absolutely no problem at all. How are you?
I'm good.
Fantastic. Now,
And are you in England? Great.
I'm actually in Australia, so Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, now I hear it. All right. It just took me a second. It sounded more British, but usually I'm not so bad with the accent. This time I was bad. I apologize.
That's absolutely no problem at all. That's not the first time because it can be very hard to distinguish between the Australian and the British accents sometimes. So that's
Look, you're very proper sounding, so that must be why.
maybe. Now, before we start getting to talk about the questions, Carrie, now you mentioned about before that you've had some experience in Australia before, haven't you? That you lived in Australia
Yes.
for a little bit.
Yes, I was there for nearly 5 years as a kid, from the age of 4 to 8.5, or 4 to 5, something like that.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. And do you remember much about like what Australia was like when you were living there at the time?
I do. I also went back to the west east. I went back to the East Coast later as an adult to Brisbane and Sydney, but when I was a kid, we lived 2,000 miles north of Perth in a place called Exmouth, which is now a fishing resort. Um, but I remember some of the things because my parents were really good at pointing out that I was getting this unique experience that a lot of people don't get. So I remember how gorgeous the ocean was on our side, the bay side. The water, was clear all the way down to the bottom. It was also infested with great whites, though, so you had to be really careful, and tiger sharks and lots of poisonous things. And the tide pools were gorgeous. The tide pools, though, my family would point out all the unique things in the tide pools as long as you didn't touch them, because there were lots of poisonous things. And the kangaroos and emus and things like that.
Wow, that is
And
fantastic.
how very, very, very hot it was. It was very hot.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned about that actually because I mean now I think I guess to many people out there they think when they think Australia like it's gonna be crazy hot out there, but I think in the words of, and I say this quite a lot at the start, and many of the listeners out there will know, is as Neil Finn from Crowded House, the Australian band Crowded House once said, 4 seasons in one day. That's how we describe Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, Melbourne. Okay. See, now there it was 115 degrees in the shade all year long.
Wow,
That
that's
it did change. The only time it changed is when you get a cyclone, when a cyclone hit, which was I think once a year there was a cyclone. You had to board up. It was a thing. You had to like board up all your windows and all your doors in a certain way so that the roof didn't get ripped off and like. Yeah, it was hot enough to where dashboards boiled in the car, and you couldn't sit if there weren't cloth seats. You couldn't sit down without towels, or you could get third-degree burns. It was just hot,
oh man.
just hot. But still, there were some great experiences. I mean, I started school there, and the neighborhood was pretty close knit. It was a very tiny neighborhood, so it was a Star Wars the whole 4.5 years I lived there. The first one. I'm very old. That's all
Wow.
they showed. Anyways.
But that's absolutely fantastic. That's just wonderful. Now, obviously, with what's happening, or kind of what's happening in time, because of what's happening with the virus at the moment, how have you been keeping things up, especially on the acting side of things?
It's been a really big transition for all of us voice actors. We've all had to, we all had kind of home studios where we auditioned, but I was on the road when this hit, on my way from New York to Los Angeles, and so I was not even in a solid place. Anybody who had a home studio had to really upgrade it to make it absolute record quality as best as possible. There was people had to get new equipment, new rooms to record in, lots of new programs on the computer. It's been actually kind of expensive. The people that I'm staying with, I'm in Minnesota at this moment with some friends. They have helped me very, very much with this. So I have a walk-in closet that I've gotten, set up as best as possible to be able to record in. But it's been quite a transition. And also those of us who are not very tech have had to learn a lot of tech and deal with stuff that we are not comfortable dealing with as far as the technological side of things, because we don't have the, you're doing it in your own home studio. You don't have a sound engineer, so you've got to learn a lot. But that's how we've been doing it. That's how we've been doing it. So it's at least good that we get to still audition and stuff.
That's fantastic, and that definitely seems to be the case with a lot of actors within the animation industry, like having to go through the home studio approach in that fact. But also because, like, obviously with what's happening with animation at the moment, like, I know for a fact that recently that One Piece is getting back into, like, doing the rest of the, is getting back into production again with the dubbed episodes from where it last picked off. And especially,
Oh,
that's from what I've heard so far, and also from the Japanese dub as well. Like, the Japanese voice actors have said, we're getting back into, like, doing production on where we left off with the One Piece series. So,
well,
that,
that's exciting.
yes, which is absolutely fantastic. It's just absolutely wonderful. So, it's really great to see there's a lot of, that animation is still is still going on, even during this very difficult time, which is
Yes, I'm
fantastic.
very pleased about that as well, and also some video games and that kind of thing. So I'm also very pleased about that. To just still have the opportunity and for them to still be doing work is pretty amazing.
Absolutely, that is fantastic. Now, let's start right at the very beginning of your career. How did you get started in acting?
So, I was gonna be a doctor my whole life so that I could go to Africa and help people who didn't have access to medical care. But I gave up. I gave up acting for pre med when I was trying to get the money for college. And um, at that point in time, I was around. I used to work where they owned the Family Channel back then. It was kind of a long time ago. So I was around movie cameras and all kinds of stuff. And every day I would go home and kind of pray for a couple hours a day because I was like, God, you got to take away this desire. I can't be an actor if I'm going to be a doctor, and I love it too much. You got to make this desire stop. And it didn't stop. It just got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So I realized that there was a reason behind it and went to talk to some people I trusted, and they kind of verified everything. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's it. I guess I'm going to be an actor. Um, so I started doing, I had already been doing theater. I went to school for the arts in high school. I did theater in grade school. I loved theater, but I thought, I was giving it up for pre-med. So I started doing theater again in the area where I was. And then I knew what I wanted to do on camera, so I moved to LA. And, but my voice, it used to be more like this. So I got tired of being told that I sounded too young or too innocent. So I started talking to people once I learned about voiceover work. And for the longest time, I said no. I said, what's voiceover? I don't know what that is. I'm an actor. What's voiceover? I didn't know what it was. When I found out what it was, I kind of did a demo and started auditioning, and it became a thing.
Fantastic.
And I was like, oh yeah, my voice is actually good for something. Cool.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And who would you consider to be like your influences?
For voiceover, or for acting in general?
For acting in general.
Oh gosh, Meryl Streep and Anthony Hopkins, because they're real actors to me. Like, especially the way they change completely and totally from part to part. There's others I admire, and also okay, I'm really terrible with names, but Nicole Kidman. It seems like I've seen a lot of great acting from her lately. Also, as I think it was Virginia Woolf was very different to me. I didn't actually get to see it, but I saw snippets of it. And then there's a lot of people I admire who I consider more movie stars as opposed to actors, because they're kind of more similar in all the parts, but they're still very entertaining. So there's that side of things too. But as far as the real acting side of things, it's definitely Meryl Streep and Anthony Hopkins, and there's some new ones coming up. I mean, there's always some actors who are growing and changing as things go, and I'm like, wow, I never thought that person could do that, and I'm very amazed by it. So anytime if I see somebody and they don't look at all like themselves and you can't tell who they are and they're completely different, I'm like, now that's an actor.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And with going into with voiceover work, do you walk into like a series or a project expecting to play a certain role, or is it just like walking up to a Jack in the Box, not knowing what to expect?
There's kind of both, but I would say most often, and it also depends on where you are, because Texas works a little bit differently than LA, than New York. So in New York, I would say it was kind of a Jack in the Box most of the time, not all the time, but it was kind of like I'd get called. Okay, could you come in for a session? Okay, great. And they wouldn't tell me what show or what part, so I would just show up, and then they would tell me about it, and maybe show me a picture if there was one. In Texas, in Dallas, I would say I had a better idea, because usually I had auditioned for it. So, and they would usually tell me, okay, so can you come in and record such and such of a role, the such and such role, and I remember it from the auditions. And maybe I would have, watched a fan sub or something to see, kind of to have a better idea of the show. And there was also the script adapting, so that helped. Also, when I do script adapting for New York, that helps. Then you really, you totally know what's going on when you're doing the script adapting. For LA, I think I usually have some idea. I mean, usually I have some idea of what the role is. Not a big one, but usually some idea.
Right. Fantastic. And with now across your entire career, have you ever turned down a role for any particular reason?
I'm afraid so. Usually if it's totally in your face, gratuitous sex stuff in it, like then I turn it down.
Right.
So that means not fan service. That means like sex scenes and really, no reason for it. Like, it's not a war show where someone's getting raped, because you kind of understand that happens in a war situation. But it's just totally in your face and very gratuitous. That's the case where if they tell me in advance, I'm like, I think I better not do that one.
Right.
Like, there was one particular video game many years ago that I turned down because I thought thought it was really bad for teenagers and stuff until I saw my nephew playing it, and then I was like, oh, I guess it's not that bad. But at the time, I thought it was pretty bad. So.
Right, because that seems to be the case with a lot of actors, like especially for any actors that have been in the industry for quite a very long time, they usually tend to turn down roles for usually reasons like that, but also and especially speaking for myself as a fan, like if I'm watching across on a series that I know has specific content or subject matter thrown in there that I know is just not right at all, I just go like, no, not watching that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm the same way with theater and TV. I've turned down TV roles that probably would have helped out my career a lot and never gotten anything that was close to what I was offered. But when they said, oh, you have to be completely naked to film this, and not only under any circumstances did I not want to do that. It was not appropriate to what they were filming. I was told, oh, you have to be completely naked because it's going to film better that way, but we're not going to show everything. I'm like, no, no, that's not happening. So there's film and theater to consider for that kind of thing too.
Absolutely. Now looking across on like anime. Now, as many anime fans will know, is that anime for the most part is typically based on like manga or any pre-existing material that's there. Have you ever read the manga for any anime series that you worked on, or heard of a project that you worked on before you started working on that series?
Marmalade Boy. I think I might have read one or two, or maybe just glanced at it. I don't know if I did it before I was in it or after I was in it, but I think Marmalade Boy, and I've definitely checked out some of the manga for Tsubasa Chronicles, and anytime I see a manga for something that I know or that I'm in, I'll kind of glance at it and check it out a little bit. And then lately there's people who are making, their own projects who ask me about it, and I'll read the manga, first, if they tell me they're hoping to do something voiceover with it, and I'll read the manga so that I know, what their project is, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because typically with a lot of actors that are based in voiceover work, especially in anime work, for that matter, you have a lot of actors that have not been known for reading the manga, but also actors that are huge fans of that sort of stuff and have gone into reading the manga to such incredible lengths. As I think one example that comes to mind for me, and where I interviewed Aaron Roberts and Amber Lee Connors, who are huge fans of that style of work, who have read the manga for a lot of the projects that they worked on, because Aaron Roberts, I think, once said to me that I want to give off the best performance I can, even though it's in a dubbed kind of setting. But you also have actors like Joshua Seth, for example, who's known from Digimon, who said, I think it was either Joshua Seth or Spike Spencer from Evangelion, who said to one bit of advice that he got from a friend of his was when he said to him, don't read ahead, because I want to be surprised when I'm in the studio.
Mm-hmm. I used to work now in LA. I used to get long time ago. I mean, when I first started, I used to get like the 4 episodes that we were recording. I would get the scripts ahead of time and be able to, just like a day or two, read. I would have to use the script versus the Japanese version. And like watch it so that I could have an idea of what was going on. But then there were certain scenes that I know the director was like, don't, I'm not giving you the scripts for this part because I want it to be a complete surprise. And there's going to be cases like that too. I totally get that side of things as well. Although wanting it to be a surprise, I do find that the manga is usually pretty different though from the series, so.
Absolutely, that's definitely true. I think in the words of of Todd Phillips when he was directing the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, where he got asked about living up to the legacy aspect of the Joker, or like when he's adapting like a specific storyline for the character. He said, I mean, we didn't base this on one particular comic book story. We based this across on the entire 80-year history of this incredible character. But we did take a little bit of inspiration from several stories, though. But the other way he saw it was like, I see comic books as like the American Shakespeare. It's like there's more than one version of Hamlet. There's more than one version of Romeo and Juliet. There's going to be more than one version of Batman and the Joker. So usually they tend to take some changes with the source material sometimes, just to keep like different sort of expectations on fans going like, because if they did it 100% to the manga or that source material, it'd be like, well, why don't you just read it instead?
Right. Right, and that's actually, I love that way of looking at things. Like Shakespeare, there's just different versions, and I really like that way of looking at things.
That's absolutely true, and it's fantastic. And for any series or project that you worked on where your character is quite prominent across the series or is a main character, do you, like as you mentioned about before with like xxXHolic and Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, do you have an idea for where your character is going in that story or in the story arc that you're working on, or is everything usually recorded out of context?
No, usually I know what's going on in that scene. I may not know where they're going in the future, or I may. It depends on the director. Sometimes the director will say, just so you know, eventually this is going to happen. But with xxXHolic and Tsubasa Chronicles, I didn't really know where the Mokanas were going. I definitely had done some research, though, to decide, like, how I wanted to do my audition and stuff, and Colleen and I worked quite a bit on how we wanted the Mokanas, well, especially the first Mokana and Tsubasa Chronicles to be, but I didn't really know what was going to happen in the series, or where that character was going.
Right. And
I had guidelines, but didn't know specifics, if that helps.
Right, fantastic. Now, before we start getting to talking about some of your most well-known roles, what was like your first major voiceover role?
Well, actually, it was. This was the second show I recorded, but I would say it was the first major one because it was kind of a big success. It was a success online at the time. It was I My Me Strawberry X.
I think I've heard of that series.
It's very old now. I mean, it's quite old now. But it was an adorable show. It was only 13 episodes. It's a great little show, and that was, I would say, the first one because it seemed to be, people really, really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, going into talking a little bit more about, like, you're best known to fans as the Mokinas, as you mentioned about before, in xxXHolic and Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. What was it like playing those characters and across those two series?
So much fun! It was so much fun! Because, Mokina's a little, mischievous little twerp. And a lot of times, especially with Kuropu, and it was so much fun playing a mischievous character, but also a good-hearted character, I do like playing villains though, but so in Tsubasa Chronicles, Mokina was mischievous, but good-hearted. In xxXHolic, I mean, obviously Mokina was still good-hearted, but Mokina was quite a bit more mischievous. So that was even more fun because, Mokina in xxXHolic was just kind of getting drunk and making fun of Watanuki like all the time.
Right.
Seriously making fun. And that was the most fun.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And talking a little bit more about those two series. Now, Clamp is best known for crossing over characters from one series into another in what they call the Clamp universe. Were you surprised to find out the same characters you played in another series were going to be in, like, from xxXHolic with or Tsubasa with the Mokinas were going to appear in xxXHolic? And were you also surprised to find out you were going to voice those characters again?
Actually, not in that show. I was let on in advance. So I did know that there would be Black Mokina, and I also got to audition for Black Mokina, and then once we started recording, usually they would say, "Oh, by the way, White Mokinas." I call them Black and White Mokina. From white means from Tsubasa Chronicles, obviously, but they would usually tell me, "Oh, by the way, White Mokina's here too." So I don't know. I wasn't too surprised with those.
Right.
I will tell you one show I was very surprised, and it actually wasn't an anime, if I'm saying that correctly. It was a Korean cartoon. I was recording one show, and I saw stuffed animals of my characters from another show in the kids' room of the one show. That was quite a surprise.
Wow. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I was like, wow, what's going on here? And as far as I know, it wasn't. I mean, the production company had to have been somehow connected, but I haven't heard that they were. So that was pretty interesting.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely crazy. Now, you also played across in shows such as Ikki Tousen as, and I apologize if I mispronounced some of these names here, as Sonsaku, Shuffle from Kaede Fuyu, and Nancy in ROD the TV. What was it like playing across those series?
Well, hold on, let me process this for a second. Kaede, Nancy, and Ikki Tousen. So in Ikki Tousen, and you did say everything pretty darn well. I think I was very glad to be able to reprise the role of Hakufu when it came back around. I was really sad when I didn't get to do it for the second series. So I was very glad that I was able to do that again, because I was really, I mean, that show has a lot of fan service, but that's my character, like, to me, like, I'm pretty connected to her. And also, Nancy was a blast. I was so excited to get to play Nancy in ROD, and I felt like I had some pretty darn big shoes to fill with that, because the OVA had been first, and an actress I thought, an actress I adore did that first, and I loved her portrayal. And I had also been talking to the director in advance about that show, and I loved it and was super excited. And then, Kaede. Kaede, Shuffle's really fun. I especially love when Kaede goes crazy. That was my very favorite. And the director at that point, Todd, was like, just don't hold anything back. Totally let it go. Let anything you feel, just let it go, which was cool. I mean, fun. But the hardest part about Kaede was the first 4 episodes when I was directing. I'm not a fan of directing myself. I second guess myself a bit too much.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's just crazy. That's just absolutely crazy about that. And there have been a lot of actors, I think, over the years that have actually gone into directing. There, like, mostly a lot of TV actors for that matter, directing like episodes, usually just, I think, one-off episodes, just for themselves. So it is a little bit surprising to hear like actors be directors for like series that they're starring in, especially if they're a main character on that. But you spoke about, but what was that experience like with having to direct like with having directing on those first 4 episodes of Kaede on Shuffle, would you ever consider yourself going into like more directing work in the future?
Absolutely. I learned a lot from that experience, and I would I've been actually looking at doing it again, and would love to do it again. I feel
Fantastic.
like I definitely learned a lot from that experience. How to trust other people, the other actors more, especially, you know? Because I had amazing actors in that show. Oh, everybody was so good. So great for their roles. And when we had troubles with lines, they knew exactly, like, how to fix it. Everybody was amazing in that show. So,
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, another series that you're also best known for is her Haibane Renmei as Rika. What was it like playing that character and in the series?
we call her Raka, just if it's okay to
Yep.
correct me. That is one of my very, 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 very completely. I would say if I had to pick one, I would pick that one as my very favorite, and it's because of what she goes through. And all the characters go through. The show's a pretty deep show, so everybody has got life questions to consider in that show, and growth happens. And I loved playing that role for that reason. I mean, she got to grapple with the questions that every human being pretty much asks themselves. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Why did this happen? She didn't remember, so she was asking what happened. What does this mean? What does all of this mean? And she grew through it. I love that show. I loved getting. I think if I had not gotten to play that role, I don't know what I would do if I had not gotten to play that role. Like that, I was just. It was either made for me or I was made for it. I don't know. And there's also the whole like bird thing. Is when I don't know if you know the bird in the well, but when she realizes the importance of the bird in the well, that represented some things for me. So
Fantastic. And it's really interesting about how you mentioned about how you feel like you were born to play this character. It's kind of in the same way like how when I look at the Evangelion series, for example, which even though that ended up having a bit of controversy in the past because of the whole Netflix dub, when I still look at the Evangelion series, I see like Shinji, I still think of Spike Spencer. When I see Asuka, I still think of Tiffany Grant. And when I see Rei, I still think of Amanda Wynn Lee. So when you see like specific characters that those actors have played, you automatically think of those actors straight away. That's
I still think of Amanda and Nancy in Naruto. I still think of her. But yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of in that same sort of vein as well. It's like instant. It's like when I look to those types of characters, and for any fans out there listening, especially if you're like knowing about the animation industry for that matter, and for like even though the animation and the voice acting industry can be slightly anonymous, unless you know unless you go to conventions, unless you actually know the shows back to front, and you're huge fans of all that kind of stuff. When I look across a lot of these characters, I automatically think of the actors straight away. In that fact, because it's like you see them as those, like you see the actors and the characters, and you go like, they're just born to play those characters right there.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely fantastic. And I say this quite a lot in a lot of the interviews I do, but I say this to all the people out there, and they always come up to me, and like I think some people have asked me like, why do you go to the comic conventions? I go to meet the voice actors. Those people are my rock stars right there.
Aww, that's so flattering.
Thank you for that. Now, you've also played across in other series such as Penny in the Funimation dub of Crayon Shin-chan, Asta in Trinity Blood, Miu Furinji in Kenichi the Mightiest Disciple, Kaya in One Piece, and Zazie Rainy Day in Negima. What was it like playing across those series?
Okay, so I'm trying to like kind of remember all of them. So Penny was a complete blast because I try not to cuss in real life, and New York's kind of ruined me just a little bit. But it was part of my job to cuss, so it was really fun. So and Penny is just so bad in so many ways. And Crayon, so Shinchan was an absolute blast. Asta at Trinity Blood was so much fun because she was just so much the opposite of what my normal characters are, and I think that might have been one of the first times I ever voiced a deeper character, and a tough, if I can say it, tough badass chick. I mean, I don't think I'd ever gotten to do that before. I'm pretty sure Trinity Blood was before ROD. I'm trying to think, but that was amazing for that reason. And Mike, the director, was so supportive and helpful in me playing that role. Let's see, okay, you mentioned Miu in Kenichi, and that was just lots of fun because also here you have a really good girl who's also a kick butt chick in the right reasons, in the right situations. You know what I mean? So she was a really strong character, and moral and everything. I love that show. And then what am I missing that you might have mentioned?
Kaya in One Piece and Zazie Rainy Day in Negima.
So those were both smaller roles, but fun. Kaya was a surprise, but not so different. I don't feel like that role is so different than me or than other roles that I've played perhaps. But she is a darn cool character, and I was very happy to play her. And I think it's really neat that she gave them their their ship. Zazie was really cool because she barely says anything, and when she does, it's kind of like, wait, what? Like I don't know, she kind of makes a statement. Zazie kind of makes statements. She's very different. She was very cool too.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And talking a little bit more about with One Piece, you made your return to the role of Kaya in the episode of East Blue Special, which is a retelling of the very first arcs of the anime. What was it like coming back into a retelling of this story?
It was a surprise. It was a big surprise. First of all, I didn't know that was gonna happen, and it was a bit different. I was trying to, it'd been a long time, so I was trying to make sure I had her voice right and all of that kind of stuff. And I got to record. I don't know. It was really fun. I was really happy to be able to do that.
Right, that's absolutely fantastic because last time I spoke with I actually spoke with Tiffany Grant a few I think it was around last month or a couple of months ago, I think it was, on HannaTalk, and we spoke about when her character Nojiko returned for the very same special, and she spoke about how she said, well, her role was kind of exactly the same. It's just obviously the animation is just very different and the story was just done a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So it often made me wonder quite a fair bit about, like, wondering why would you do a retelling of like the very first arcs from the anime when you could just go back and watch like the very first arcs from the anime. So
Yep.
so it did kind of.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, sorry. Go ahead.
It did kind of make me think that way just a little bit, but then I thought to myself, oh, okay, so it's just basically just like. It's just like, well, okay, this is just something we're going to give to the original fans, but also just to give to new fans that have never watched One Piece before, but also kind of tell the story in a way that was very much right out of the manga itself, because the way they told the very first arcs from the story is a little bit different from how it was done in the manga. So at least that's my interpretation of it, really. So
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I was also gonna go back a second to Zazie and Negima. That I just want to say that was a surprise too, because the character was different than the norm, and I was surprised that they thought of me for that role. So that was really fun too. I just had to mention that.
That's fantastic. But no, that's absolutely wonderful though. And actually talking more about Negima, in which you played Zazie during the original series, but you also played the character again in the reboot series, which is a retelling of the original story, but keeping it much more accurate to the manga. But your character also came back into xxXHolic, which was the sequel to Negima. What was it like returning to the character in the retelling of the series, and how different did it feel playing her in that version of the story?
Okay, so I'm a bit confused. So there's Negima the first season, and then there's the second season where I would call the second season, but maybe it's a retelling where I played Zazie and Satomi, right?
That's the one, yes.
That's the one? Okay. It was really fun because everything was different. Everything seemed different in that way. And also, Jamie Markey was directing, and she's a blast to work with. So it was really fun. And plus, when I first played Zazie, I didn't have so much of an idea of what Negima was about. I mean, I knew from talking from being at conventions with Greg and other people from the series, but I didn't know too much about it. So when I got to come back for the reboot or the second season or whatever you would call it, I knew a lot more of what was going on. So that was my first experience with there was some kind of creature in that. What was it called? Now I can't remember. It was my first time being told about this creature that I've since seen in various fairy tale-ish TV shows. It was a monsterish character. I don't know. Never mind.
I'm not entirely sure either. So.
Can't think of the name of it. Had an interesting name. Anyways.
But that's fantastic, though. That's absolutely wonderful. And speaking about, of course, with now, as over the last few years, we've had so many revivals and reboots of many different series over the years, from Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood from Fruits Basket, which is now hitting season 2 with Negima. So my question to you is, if you wanted to do another revival or reboot of one project you've worked on, what would you want that to be?
Okay, reboot. Well, I would love to do another Haibane Renmei series. I wouldn't necessarily want to do a reboot, but another series would be pretty amazing. It's really, I really can't say because I love everything I've done so much. I can't always think of things that I would want to change.
No, but that's absolutely fantastic. No, absolutely, that's absolutely makes a lot of sense. That's fantastic, and also because you have mentioned about before with Haibane Renmei, like how much you wanted to come back, how much you wanted to like be part of the second series, and how much you want the series to come back to do like pick up from where it left off. That would be amazing if they would do that. And to any listeners out there, let's make that happen. Let's make it happen.
Oh, that would be so amazing. Oh wait, no, I got one. I got one. I got you one. It's not a reboot, but I would love to do another season of Witchblade also.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And if you wanted to do a spin-off series of any project that you've worked on, what project would that be, and what would you want the spin-off to focus on?
Spin-off. How to choose. I think I thought of it. Yeah, I might have thought of the answer to this and then forgot what I had thought of. Spin off. I'd love to do more ROD where Nancy was in it more. So that would be an awesome spin-off. I guess what I was really saying with Witchblade was more like a spin-off where my character was the Witchblade. I think that's where they're going with it. I would love to do a spin-off of Trinity Blood where Asta, she grows. You know, in Trinity Blood, Asta grows. And I would love to do a spin-off where she grows even more and becomes a bit more she stays badass, but becomes more compassionate as well. And more of a hero, maybe. There's one show that I've always wanted to do, but I can't call it a spin-off because I never got to do it. It's hard to say with spin-offs, but there's definitely characters I want to do more of. I mean, I want to do more Penny. I want to do more Mokina.
that would be absolutely
fantastic. I want to do more Kenichi.
That would be absolutely fantastic. And to anybody out there listening, once this interview is up, let's get a spin-off series happening of any one of these characters, because that would be so fantastic. That would be amazing.
I think I thought of one. If you do a Kenichi spin-off where Miu has a daughter and she's teaching her daughter how to fight.
That would be fantastic.
Both, yeah.
That would be fantastic. And where do you hope to see yourself with regards to acting in the long run?
Well, I mean, I was trying to, theater is my background, so I would love to be doing more theater again. I mean, that's what I went to New York. I went to school for theater, and I love it, specifically musical theater. And I mean, just to sing and dance in the chorus or a character role would be just like I could die and be happy if I did that. I still want to do more on camera. I mean, it's always been my dream to be a funny character in a sitcom. I would call it ditz, but because of my age, I would have to say more quirky, I guess, now. And so I would still love to do that. I would still love to do Saturday morning cartoons. I would still love to do Disney. Everything I wanted to do, I still haven't done. So, and more anime and more video games.
That's fantastic.
All of it.
That's absolutely fantastic. And a bit of a funny sort of question here, a bit of a brain thinker with this one here. What two shows have you worked on? And you mentioned about before with xxXHolic seeing the moniker in one cartoon that you worked on, which just absolutely blew your mind. But what two shows have you worked on would you want to see a crossover between?
Oh, a crossover. Okay, I'm gonna have to say Ikki, Tousen, and Trinity Blood.
Fantastic.
Because Asta would just be so fed up with Hakufu. I just think it could be both super serious and hilarious. Like, Hakufu would drive Asta completely crazy.
That would be so fantastic. And to any of the listeners out there listening, let's get a crossover happening between those two shows, because that would be so epic. That would be so fantastic.
Ooh, or you could also do Trinity Blood and xxXHolic, because Mokina would drive Asta and everybody in Trinity Blood completely crazy. So
that's absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure there's somebody out there just writing down ideas going like, that's actually an interesting idea. Yeah, let's make this happen.
Woo, that would be so fun.
That would be so amazing. That would be so fantastic. And across your entire career, what would you? But with many of the roles that you've done, what is like one character or series that you've ever wanted to play or ever wished that you played?
Oh My Goddess is the one I always wish I could have done.
Right, fantastic.
The anime wise, of course, Disney is a completely different story. So
That's absolutely fantastic. Well, fingers crossed that we end up getting another Oh My Goddess series. To any of the listeners out there, let me know in the comments. Do you want to see a revival or another series of the Oh My Goddess series? And leave a like or a comment if you really want to see Carrie Savage be part of the series.
yes, please.
That would be so fantastic. And across your entire career, what would you say has been like the one role that resonates with you the most?
Oh, definitely Raka. in Haibane Renmei, definitely Raka.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And across your entire voice acting career, what is your view on where the voice acting and the animation industry stands within the entertainment industry?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one
So,
more time?
excuse me. Now, having been part of the acting industry for a very long time in both live action but also the voiceover world, what is your view on where voice acting and the animation industry stands within the entertainment industry?
Oh, it's so hard to say. I mean, for a long time, I think specifically speaking of anime, I know I'm saying that the very English way, but or the very American way, but we all thought that that was going to kind of come to a close because so much was happening economy-wise and also in Japan and with the studios in Japan, and the relationships with the studios in the U.S. So much money was lost. For a while, we all thought that that was just going to crumble. And I'm very glad that it hasn't, and it seems to be on an upsurge. And now, Netflix is doing their own stuff and more stuff. And some stuff is reappearing on TV. Old stuff like I can't think of the names, but I think Vampire Night and also Paranoid Agent just made a bit of a resurgence on TV. So I guess I'm very pleased to see that. That's very exciting, and it's very exciting. There seem to be lots more shows being made or being dubbed. There also seems to be more original animation being made, and I love the opportunity to become a part of all of that. And as far as TV, I vote for more sitcoms.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely
More,
wonderful.
I'm sorry, I'm such a girl. More rom-coms, more sitcoms, and more action adventure that's not just to shoot 'em up. More exciting than shoot 'em up.
That's absolutely fantastic. That's definitely wonderful. And it's
and more fantasy, I love fantasy sci-fi. Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. That's just wonderful, and that's definitely true about how how you said at the time. Like, of course, obviously with voice acting with animation has now started to still going incredibly strong to this day forward, and it's absolutely fantastic that a lot of the shows that you've worked on is now starting to have this resurgence in some way. Like, people are now discovering a lot of these, especially for fans who are longtime fans of a lot of these shows, but also bringing across a lot of these series to a lot of these streaming services, like Netflix, for example, doing a resurgence of a lot of the shows you've worked on, just bringing that across to new fans. I think that's just fantastic.
Yeah, that's very exciting for me, especially being so many of my shows being so old now. It's like, oh, wow, I'll get to meet new fans, younger fans. I get to meet them all because I love the fans who've been fans for forever, and you can talk to them about a lot of stuff. And some of them become friends, but I also love to meet new ones too. And maybe I don't feel as old.
That's absolutely fantastic. That's just wonderful. And without going into any spoilers, what's next for Carrie Savage for the fans to know about?
Oh, well, I'm not really allowed to be specific. I mean, in New York, I was working on shows that I believe are going. A lot of them are for kids, very much for kids, and somewhat educational, and are going direct to DVD. Somewhere from actually France, and some were from China. And then there's a couple of Korean shows. Some are on Amazon Prime right now. But I was working on other seasons of those shows, actually very recently. All I can say is really next is just the other seasons of those particular shows right now.
Fantastic. And final question, what do you think the Monica would do and say if they were in Australia?
Oh. Okay. Black Mokina would be riding a shark. and drunk with a thing of sake in his hand. Oh, I call Black Mokina boy. So if White Mokina is a girl, Black Mokina is a boy. So would be drunk with a thing of sake. And White Mokina would try to go fishing with the guys from Tsubasa, and then think that was really boring. Would see what Black Mokina was doing, decide that the teeth was a little too big, but the shark's teeth were a little too big, and could go one of two ways. Either decide to take a less dangerous route and ride the dolphins, which White Mokina would absolutely do. Would definitely ride dolphins. Might try a jellyfish to eat it and decide it was very, very, very not good. And then might decide to climb into the shark's mouth just to get a little better view of those teeth. Obviously, it's all based on water, but...
But no, that's absolutely fantastic. That would be.
Do they have any monkeys in Australia? We didn't have anywhere. Are there monkeys?
I believe there are monkeys in Australia. I think you can find them in the zoo somewhere.
Okay, then White Mokina particularly would have a blast hanging out with monkeys. Spider monkeys, yeah.
That's fantastic. That's so epic. That is just wonderful. Carrie Savage, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all the great questions.
That's absolutely no problem at all. And it's been an honor to have you on here. And is there anything you would like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
Well, I hope I get to meet you in person someday. That's all. I need to be at a con in Australia. I want to meet you guys in person.
That would be so fantastic.
I miss my Australia.
That would be so fantastic, and we'd be looking. We would all be looking forward to that once this whole thing is over. We'd so be looking forward to that when Comic-Cons will finally happen again. That would be so fantastic.
It would be so great. It'd be like going home a bit, you know?
Absolutely.
So, it'd be amazing.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. Well, guys, if you'd like to find out more about Carrie Savage, you can check out the links which I'll put to you in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to HannaTalk, follow me on both Facebook and Twitter, check out my links which will be in the description below, click on that bell to receive notifications, and don't forget to comment below as well. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Carrie Savage signing off. Bye for now.
Bye, thank you.